Okay. So hi everyone. So my name is Juma Alan. I'm an Android engineer. So I'll be the moderator for today's session. So thank you for signing to join in this webinar today. So today we'll be focusing on what's new in so today we'll be focusing on Android 11 APIs and Jetpack. And we'll be having two speakers for today's session. So I'm going to introduce them and then I let them take over. So the first speaker for today is Smile Egbai. Is an Android engineer at Adidas. So welcome, Smile. And then we'll be having Hannah. Hannah is a software engineer at Andela. She works for Macroeyes. So welcome everyone, and a few ground rules before we get started. Please keep your mics on mute and switch off your videos. Thank you. So Smile, let you take over. Smile, if you can hear me. Okay.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, then clear.
Okay. Hope you can see the presentation.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, so um, some things we'll be treating today. I'm sorry, I'm hearing like an echo. If you're not mute, maybe you could help. Okay, I think that's better. Can you still hear me? Just signal in the chat. Awesome. All right. So some things we'll be treating today would be media control API, system UI, device controls, biometric authentication updates, camera X, Appcompat, and Webkit. Although unfortunately everybody wants to hear a lot about Jetpack, and most of these libraries from about number 4 down to 7 are actually included in Jetpack. So what we could do is during the recap, we would as well, during the Q&A, we would as well take general questions on Jetpack that are not covered here so that we could get everybody on page on what Jetpack is, how you could use them in your applications, and as well in case maybe you would need a follow-up talk, we could arrange something for that. All right. So a lot of people will be thinking like, why do we need more APIs? We've started Android from version 0.5 all the way to Android 10, and now we are talking about adding new APIs. Like, why? What's Google really doing about this? But well, for one thing, we do know is Google has always been in helping developer experience and making sure apps developers build also meet user expectations and to reduce as much user pain points when using applications. And the thing that's always most important is making sure that apps have seamless transitions that feel natural. And new APIs with user data in mind and protecting this data. That's why we actually talk about having new APIs. You know, the engineering team over there has always been trying to equip developers to build better experiences because if we don't have the tools or the APIs to help us build these good experiences, the Android platform itself will always be lagging back. And as well, no one wants to be pulling their hairs while writing code. Writing the code is stressful enough. Why pull your hairs because of poorly documented APIs or APIs that just don't work? As well, interactions, like I wouldn't want to go into an app and I get confused on how I'm going to move through that app. I want to know if I'm going to slide up. I know what should happen when I'm sliding off. Uniformity across all apps, and this is very important why APIs have to be revised, why new APIs have to come on board to support this kind of interaction. And as well, we can't forget security, which has been one of the biggest things that have continuously been worked on, at least from Android 4 security has seemed to take precedence over anything regarding user interface. And you'd actually see much later within the talk the efforts have been put into allowing developers to actually create apps that are more secure. And one thing we do love about Google, I'm not being too much of a fanboy here, but we just have to give credit where it's due, is Google has always been the forefront of innovation and making things easy to understand, creating intuitive APIs for us. I mean, honestly, if we didn't have good APIs or resources to create apps, you wouldn't be able to see groundbreaking apps or see apps that create experiences that leave you in awe. This won't be possible without the support that we've been getting from the engineering team. And that'll lead us to our first API we'll be talking about, which is the media control APIs. We all know what media is. Media is like your videos, your audio, presentational basically to the user. And now we have new APIs that would help us to create better interactions between media with our users. So we know in previous Android versions, like Android 10, we use as a point in reference. This was the kind of screen you would see if you were listening to music. You have your media player in your notification bar. It actually appears as if it's a notification, which was quite good because in very earlier Android version, this wasn't available. But later on, we started having this, and it made a lot of sense. If I was in a media player, I'm listening to music, and I needed to minimize my app and do something else, probably chat on WhatsApp, I would always have my media controls easy to reach out to, and this made sense. But did it really make sense completely? I mean, media or music is something that's supposed to be part of the device. It's supposed to be something that's part of the operating system. But it shouldn't just be like, oh, it's just some funny add-on that's in the notifications. And from what we can actually see here is the media control has actually been added to your device notification bar, not it being a notification itself, but it being part of the bar. So it's actually now a native functionality of the operating system. And I know this might seem a bit confusing, but what's going on here is if you're going to be playing music on your phone or you are going to be listening to a video and you leave that app, these settings would always remain there within the device controls notification bar. As well, if you were to restart your device and come back, you would have this. I mean, for me, this makes a lot of sense because music, media is some of the things we use a lot on our phones. Yes, we have other apps that do other things, but media seems to be at the forefront. And we spoke earlier about Google always trying to add innovations and reduce pain points for users, and this is one of them. I mean, if I picked up my phone and needed to listen to music, in previous Android versions, I'll need to go back to my app menu, scroll through my hundreds of apps looking for my music player, open the music player and start playing music. But why? If we're talking about media being part of the device, then I should be able to just access it without having to go through so many processes. And that's what's happening right now because you wouldn't need to go through all this process. You just need to bring down your notification bar and there is your media player. And one nice thing about this is any recent media player you were using would always appear in your notification bar. So if you were using Spotify or your favorite podcast app, maybe like FM radio, it would appear there. And one of the most intuitive thing I can see about this is the fact that it's actually very contextual in the sense that if you're using a local media player, that would appear first in the carousel slider. Then anything coming from a stream source would appear after. So now it won't be that, okay, I was listening to music on my local media player, and later on I had to listen to a podcast, and I paused that and I was listening to my podcast. And when I want to go back to the music, I need to go and scout through my apps again. No, it's there for you already. It's there in your notification bar because it's part of the system now. And if you want to take a closer look at these media controls, you can see that highlighted there, you'd see we are able to switch audio sources quite easily. I mean, imagine you're using your Bluetooth speaker and you needed to step outside the house and you didn't want to take that with you. You could quickly switch to your earpiece if it's already plugged to the phone. And you have all those options without scouring through your settings, looking for how to switch your audio source, having to switch off your Bluetooth or some other connection to it. And these are the type of pain points that the platform engineers have actually been trying to reduce. It might seem like, oh, wow, this is just music, but no, like this is actually part of something bigger. It's part of actually reducing how much time you have to spend to get to do what you want. And we get into the slogan of saying it just works. I know a lot of people know about platforms that like using that as the forefront of their advertisement, but let's not point fingers. So what do we really need to integrate media controls into our already existing media apps that we probably developed? Well, probably nothing. If 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 maybe you implemented your media app using some certain guidelines that have been provided before. So the truth is most of these guidelines have been there and you literally don't need to change anything if you used them previously. And we'll take a look at them, which were you previously using a media browser service? Did you allow connections to the Android system UI? And have you overridden GetRoot in your media browser? These are just a couple of things that we're talking about. And did you provide adequate metadata, which would be things like the title and adequate description, also an image and a fallback image for when the media player would be showing down in the notification. So if you've already had most of these things going on, then definitely you actually don't need to make any change at all. Just get your users to update to Android 11 and boom, there it is. Your app is more or less an operating system app. And let's not forget the notification using media style. This was already added, I think, in Android 9 or 8. So if your media app's already using this, then of course, you're actually one of the lucky few. So you don't need to bother yourself. Just wait and see the new interface. Now, we could take a little bit of a deep dive into how we would allow connection to the system UI. So one thing I'd like to note is this code is actually available from the Universal Android Media Player. So it's there. There are lots of samples in which you could do most of these things and be able to adapt your apps as quick as possible if you haven't already been following these guidelines previously. So this is actually just a snippet that allows you to, that shows an example of how to check the platform signature. And the platform signature here would actually be the Android system UI. And that comes in the form of like a package name, which would be com.android.system UI. And if you could check across this signature, you would be able to use this snippet to allow connections to the UI. Though if you don't have any problem with allowing other apps to connect to your media player, then this won't really be necessary for you. But if you want to keep your media like secluded only to your app, then you would need to use this check to make sure only the Android system can actually connect to your media browser. And as well, we spoke about overriding on GetRoot. We're just showing a little snippet here on how you could do that. And as well, like I mentioned earlier, all the code is available on the Universal Android Media Player. So the get root basically just allows you to return a media browser root, which is like a tree of all the media that's found within your app, especially if your app streams local media. And if it doesn't, the tree root will basically be a series of URLs where the Android system can pick and use that to do a playback resumption. But if you actually don't override on GetRoot, or maybe you feel this might be a bit too complex to implement, your app would still show up within the device controls, but the only difference is it would not support playback. So, for example, if a user was to be playing music with your app and they restarted their phone, when the phone comes back on, they wouldn't be able to resume the previous music they were playing, but definitely your app would still show within the device notification bar. In as much as you've already been using the notification media style, then it would still show. It just won't support resuming after a phone had restart. And the media styles is quite simple. Android has already provided a template for you to use. So all you basically need to do is just use the notification Appcompat media style. And as well, you set a media session to that notification and everything would be set up for you. So earlier on, we said how the platform engineers are trying to reduce our pain points, both as users and developers. And as we could see, implementing most of these new features, it's not really making us take a sweat. We don't have to scour through so much documentation or read so many books and tutorials on how to do this. Almost everything works with what was already there, but just maybe a tweak here and there to assist you to, get the things up to speed. But besides that, I think there's really been a very good job in the new APIs and nothing is really requiring too much effort. So we'll go next into one of my favorite topics, or one of the favorite things I've really seen come into Android 11, which are the device controls. I mean, like for the past 2 or 3 years now, we've actually seen how Internet of Things has been overtaking the whole world, and everybody is either talking about creating smart homes, smart cars, like smart sensors everywhere. Like now, you could just be getting close to your house and your lights turn on. Use your phone to control your alarm system. You could be in the office and be controlling your cameras at home. Everything is really getting connected, and it's quite inspiring to see that Android is also taking a very good step into this. Our device controls actually connect to any devices in your house which you already have the supporting app on your phone. And
Smile, somebody muted you.
Yeah, sorry.
uh-huh.
Someone put you on my son.
Okay, I guess someone doesn't like device controls. Okay, so I was talking about if you have an app or apps within your phone which already are connected to some of the smart systems within your house or anywhere that you have smart systems that you'd like to connect to your phone. Android or the platform engineers have actually made seamless experiences for us where pressing down on the power button actually brings up a menu called device controls, which are just centered around these things. And these things appear as widgets for us. It makes the whole process of like you're coming back home and you don't want to start unlocking your phone or doing so many things, but you just need to put on the lights at your front door so that you could see what's there, like security wise as well. You don't need someone standing there waiting for you. So you could just long press on your power button and boom, there it is. You have your widgets and you have your controls. And at the touch of your controls, everything just works. Once more, I'm using that slogan. And the controls are actually split into 5 device control categories. And this has largely been done for simplicity because like if you look around, our controls really just fit into certain ranges. So you have things like, first of all, these are displayed as widgets, as we saw in the previous screen. And on the right, you are actually seeing an example of these widgets. So these 5 categories are basically your toggle on and off switch. And this could be focused on the lamp. And you would also have a toggle with a slider. So maybe you have a light switch that allows you to dim, brighten. This would work very well for you. And as well, you have a stateless toggle. Now, what we mean by a stateless toggle is you have some gadgets where you don't really need to know, where you actually need to know the state of that gadget, like maybe a thermometer, for instance. So you would actually need to know the temperature as of that point in time before you could try a thermostat, sorry, before you could actually try to set your required temperature. Like maybe you, that day is like 36 degrees and your thermostat was previously set to maybe 32. So you'd actually need to get like the value of the thermostat as of that point, then for you to maybe turn it down to maybe 19 degrees so that you could have a little bit of chill in your place. Then the temperature panel as well. This works for displaying temperature, so it's also a category, but it could also be used with a cooker, a kettle, or it's just a general category where those kind of devices would fall under. And as well, a range. You would have maybe something like a fan, which would have a fixed range of maybe 0 to 5, and those ranges will serve as speed. So devices such as that could also fall under using the range type of widget. And like we said, long pressing device widget would take you straight into the app. So you wouldn't need to, oh, okay, I just set this thing to off and I need to change the setting. I need to unlock my phone, or yeah, you still unlock your phone, but I need to maybe slide up to the app menu, look for that app again. And once more, we can see this is another pain point that has been removed, though it wasn't even there before, since these things are new, but like they've actually thought forward and be like, okay, no, let's actually tackle this problem right now. And one thing I also like to note about the controls provider API is it's largely based on reactive streams. So this is because like you actually need an observable pattern, like turn on the control, you wait for a response from the device and you act on that response. So the controls provider API is largely based on reactive streams. Though you might not need to use RxJava, but you'd also still need to use any library that is compatible with reactive stream or that implements the reactive streams interface. So you could use something like Kotlin flows. That would work very well if you choose not to go the RxJava route. Now, making our controls provider, we just need to do a couple of things, which is you pick what device type you want to create a control for, like a thermostat, a cooker. You just pick the device type and you determine the UI elements you would need. Is it going to be a range? Maybe should it be a toggle? You think about that and how the interface would be. You pick your control templates, and as always, there are a lot of control templates already available, which you could use. These constants have already been provided. So from the next slide, we'll just go into a little dive and see how that would look like. And as you said, when you pick your device type, we have constants available for you where you could choose. And if you could look at the comment, I hope it's not too small. You can see like you have a device type of thermostat, and all these are actually available within the device type class. All these are actually constants you could actually set, so you don't have so much you need to customize. I mean, it seems like everything is already more or less a plug and play. And you set the structure or how you want it to be arranged. A subtitle, which will just give more context to the user on what the control can do or can't do. And as always, you would need a title. And after setting all this, like you're practically done. If you just add it to your manifest, as always, if you are creating a service, please always remember to add it to your manifest. And you add, been a new permission added, which is the bind controls permission. This basically just tells the platform to allow your service to be included within the device control. So on device boot, the platform actually filters through all applications that have this permission and as well have this intent filter for control provider service. So honestly, like with these two new APIs, I can already see that there's not much we need to do to support these amazing experiences that our users are waiting to get their hands on. And it's really quite inspiring how everything has actually been made easy, especially with the talk of templates being available, ready for you to use. So you don't need to waste time trying to make designs or thinking of how to connect these elements together. All this is already provided, so there's not much work to do besides just writing the initial code. And I'll go to the next topic, which is another thing I'm most passionate about, and it's security. Now, Android 11 has really upped up the security game and is helping we developers to control the level of securities associated with our apps data. I know on previous talks, already given insights about things like permission changes and how necessary that is and how to protect the user's data in terms of privacy. Now, yes, we could do everything like request for permissions and all, but at the end of the day, when the user does give you those permissions, how sure are they that their data is secure? So there's been a lot of updates to the biometric authentication API. Previously, we had a biometrics manager, but now a biometric manager authenticator interface has been added to the Android 11 APIs or API level 30. And within this, we have different constants which define a security level. So the biometric strong stands for any authentication using a hardware that actually satisfies the strong strength level of that device. And as well, you have the weak one, which is the same definition, except it goes a step down, which just talks about a hardware that supports weak authentication. Then device credential, which is basically just talking about your PIN, your pattern. And if we're going to break this down just a little bit more, your biometric strong would usually match to your fingerprint. Then the biometric weak most times will match to using your face to unlock your phone, because I know there have been issues with how correct it could be or the percentage of correctness, and as well issues where you could be closing your eyes and it unlocks your phone. So it's not really considered as a super strong method. So that's why you have a breakdown like this. And actually this makes sense because if you are going to be making an app that I could use an example of a financial app, and users will get in there to transfer money or try to invest. Well, you could set these parameters and say, well, if you don't actually support a certain level of authentication on your device, then you can't use this app because we cannot be sure how secure your data would be or how secure your transactions would be. Anybody could come in and pick your app and do anything they would like to do. And that's why this particular magic method, as I would call it, has been added, which is called the set allowed authenticators. Now, this allows you to pass in various parameters from the authenticator interface that would define the level of security your device has to have before a user can either access your app or access a certain feature locked within your app. And when you use this method, like kind of like the biometric prompt that was added in, I think, Android 8, when you use this method, if the device actually supports these hardware features, but the user for some reason didn't set maybe a biometric strong key, which would be the fingerprint, or a device credential, which would be the a pattern or a pin, instead of them moving straight into your feature or your app, the Android platform itself will redirect the user to the settings where the settings screen where you actually set these credentials. So the user will actually be enforced to set these things, and if they don't set these things, then that part of your app or your app itself would still be locked behind this. At least this helps you to ascertain that there's a certain level of security within the user's device, and as well it gives you the confidence to say that like your data is safe with us. And with new APIs also comes the destruction of old APIs, or the slow phasing out of old APIs. And this is important because when new APIs come, usually old APIs might be redundant, or probably the old APIs were not as safe as they should have been. So it's time to phase them out and move everybody to using the new APIs. And these new APIs would be something like set device credential allowed. This used to be what the set authenticator would have been, but it changed to set device credential allowed. Basically did the same thing, but it told the app like you must have a PIN or a pattern. But this is no longer needed because the set authentication method already allows you to define all the security levels the device must support. Then you have the set user authentication validity method. What this did as of then was to say if a user has logged in into their phone or put the device credential or unlocked their phone within maybe this certain amount of time, like if a user hasn't unlocked their phone within the past 3 minutes, then please redirect them to their lock screen, have them re-unlock their phone before coming into the app. This always ascertain that the user didn't drop their phone and someone else picked it and started like toying with it and moving into apps that held sensitive data. So this has actually been phased out, and actually this now just happens at instantaneously. So every time you said that you need a biometric strong, you don't give a duration anymore. You would always be redirected. And the can authenticate method has been changed to can authenticate and taken in the authenticator interface. And here you would actually define if you need a biometric strong or a device credential. When you call the can authenticate method, it will actually return if you could use one of these two parameters passed in. It supports the piping, but you could as well only set one credential that you'd actually like the device to support. And if it doesn't support that, it will notify you. So you don't have to start an authentication flow when you're not sure if this would move out. So that would be all from me. I think next up would have Hannah. And let me stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Smile. So as we welcome Hannah, just a quick reminder, kindly switch off your video and mic on mute. And then I've posted a link to Slido. You can send your questions for the speakers on the chat. Please do so. So Hannah, karibu sana.
Thank you. Smile, can you see my screen now? Let me know.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Smile. That was quite insightful. And interesting to see how Android 11 is just going to make our Android developer journey easier with all these cool APIs that are coming up. So for me, the next API I'm talking about is Camera X. And as the name suggests, this is just an API that will allow Android engineers to build camera apps quickly and reliably. So currently, we see Camera X on the beta phase. It's running on around 90% of Android test lab devices, but doesn't mean that it's not ready for the market, but yeah, it can still be used right now. So as developers, we're just being encouraged to continue using building our apps with Camera X and then testing out the cool features that are available on it. And when you just take a look back a few years back, like quite a few years back, developers would use Camera 2 and Camera 1 APIs. Personally, I've only worked with Camera 2. And so it's really nice to see that we can now use Camera X to extend implementations that we've been using on our Camera 2 code. So let's just go right next to what's new on Android 11 for Camera X. I had mentioned how a cool thing about Camera X is that it introduces just use cases for the camera functionality on Android devices. And these use cases are like, first, there's a preview that allows you as a developer to get to view an image on display before you capture. Then there's also image analysis that's mainly used by this for developers integrating to machine learning kits, you get to access a buffer seamlessly for use to pass into your machine learning model algorithms. Then lastly, there's the image capture, which is just to save high quality images. And so when you come to look at what's new, there's seamless preview right now on Camera X. Then there's a seamless image analysis, and then there's now the ability to save high quality images. I'll just walk you through a short sample of code on how you can get to implement a preview on Camera X API. So let's look at some bit of code. First off, we start with a XML file layout. We add in just the preview view. Yeah, that's what you add into your layout. Then when you go into your activity, for example, your main activity or where you want your camera to be, camera API class to be, you just initialize the camera provider instance with that line of code. And then now you get to verify that it's succeeded after the view is created by adding this bit of code. Sorry, I'm rushing through the code. Yeah, I want to have more time for questions after our talk. So this code is definitely available on documentation, and you can always reach out if you're stuck. And then the last step would now be to bind the preview on in your activity. So first off, we create the preview with a builder class. Then you specify the desired camera lens facing option. So you can either set it to be back facing or front facing, what we always call selfie mode. And then the next bit is to bind the selected camera on the surface provider. This is something that you'll understand if you're familiar with Camera 2 API. And then finally, you connect the preview to the preview view. Yeah. Yeah, that's it for Camera X. Next, we'll just talk briefly about Appcompat. And as many have been asking about what is Jetpack, well, this is one common library that is used in Jetpack. It consists of a wide set of support libraries, and just mainly allows device owners with old Android version devices to just access functionalities that come up with the new Android devices. So for example, we see features like the action bar, drawer menu, navigation drawer. All those are just part of the Appcompat. And when you look at this image, you get to see what previous Android developers would like using, like the tab layout. I can't remember what those other things used to be called, but it was interesting to see how right now we get to use the navigation drawer just to achieve the kind of tasks that we would previously have achieved in tab layout. So it's really cool, yeah, to see the progress right now. So what's new? On Appcompat, there are just two new additional things that have been mentioned. For Android 11, there's the additional lint rules that now will be displayed on your XML layout file. I'll show you an example. Then there's the reliable dark theme. This is just something I think Smile had mentioned in passing, and something that also has just been a cool thing that has come into Android and many people are excited about. So for the lint rules, this is an example of what you'd get to see when you're in your XML file layout. So when you have your text view property, for example, I'll use the one at the bottom that talks about your drawable stat. So previously, this is what we use on Android Studio, and then now you'll be getting a warning to just remind you to change this bit to use app instead of the Android. Yeah, that's basically it for the lint rules. So yeah, the last API of the day, I promise. We've been talking for so long and we want to hear questions from everyone. We have the Webkit. So Webkit was introduced in Jetpack as a library with a layout engine that was designed to allow web browsers to render on web pages. So you can also just call it simply modern WebView API. And for Webkit, we see one new additional update that has been brought about on Android 11. We now see that there's a forced dark mode support for WebView. What does this mean? For example, I took this screenshot of, this is Slack, yeah, of Slack, the Slack website. Previously, when you're accessing Slack on your phone, it would just, yeah, the dark theme was not going to work on your device. But right now, with Android 11, you get to see that the dark theme is supported for previous websites that would not render this inverted colors. And yeah, you'll see many of these in other websites that previously wouldn't allow for the dark theme to be visible in your phone. So we can just do a short recap of what we've been talking about today, and then we jump into the questions. Maybe Smile, you would like to talk about media control APIs in summary?
Right. Yeah. Sure. So in summary, media control APIs give us a nice and concise way to add our media apps as more or less native in the Android platform, or display within the device notification bar, and also allow quick resumption after device restart, and basically help our users get to their media as fast as possible.
Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, then the system UI is basically the updates that have actually gone to modifying the system UIs to allow these APIs, which should be like the device controls. Previously, pressing the power button only brings some sort of dimming of screen and showing like a power off screenshot restart. But now that supports device control, as well as the media controller being added to the notification bar. Then device control, just quick summary, is giving us added functionality to connect with external devices that support either some way of connection, either Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, NFC, one way or the other, but allows to control external devices. And biometric authentication just added better security support, where our apps can actually be more conscious of the device credentials or the level of security a device supports. So that would allow us to make better decisions when locking our apps down or locking features behind some security wall.
Yeah, thank you, Smile. And on my end for Camera X, just that functionality that allows you to get to see the preview of an image. I think when you get to explore it, you'll understand how important that is. And then lastly, the next thing I talked about was the Appcompat that has just 2 new additional features that were added on this API for the lint rule. So you'll be checking this out when you run your code on Android Studio. Please don't ignore the warnings. And then for the WebKit API, just that ability for the colors to be inverted. That's really cool. That's something that has been implemented on Android 11. So right now we can go to the question and answer section. Juma, you can.
So thank you, Hannah. Yeah, thank you, Hannah and Smile. So I have a few questions here for you. So the first thing is, I think this is a question that has been asked a lot. So what is Jetpack and why should we use Jetpack? So any of you can take that.
All right. What is Jetpack? Why should we? Okay. Jetpack is basically just a series of libraries provided by Android that would help and ease development, like development speed, and also help in accessing maybe complex APIs. Example of libraries which are actually found in Jetpack. Okay, before we get in the Jetpack also helps you like speed up your development, like from the process of starting your app or creating an app to finish. It provides a nice set of libraries that actually work interconnectedly. So some of these libraries are actually like the view model, work manager, a couple of libraries. I can't pick them all out of my head. I think live data for some reason is part of Jetpack as well. Yeah, so it's basically just a collection of such libraries and all of them work interconnectedly. So example, like your work manager would help you schedule tasks instead of the previous job scheduler. So work manager actually feeds that allows you to schedule background tasks. Live data obviously to notify your UI when a particular data or object has changed. What else did I mention? Yeah, so basically just help you to quick start your app. And these libraries are okay, and the Android view model, which helps retain state. So we have the problem, especially of screen rotation, where you rotate your screen and the app crashes because of maybe state was not managed properly. So the view model actually acts like a way for you to preserve state across device orientation change or across configuration changes. And currently, in most architectures, the view model has actually been used as like a layer to set view objects or actually emit states for the view objects. So actually helping your view remain dumb and you do all the processing for the view within the view model. So that's what Jetpack is all about, just providing you with libraries to ease your development. And why should you use Jetpack? Well, Jetpack brought up a lot of changes into what was already like within the Android ecosystem APIs. So Jetpack brought like these new APIs and libraries that honestly they ease development like exponentially. I can't even start to imagine. Like before, most Android APIs were one, confusing to use, one, and two, were very inconsistent. I think inconsistency was the real thing. Like if you had been doing Android for quite a while, you know that from Android 2 to Android 4.0, fragments had their own way of behaving, and the behavior of fragments were very inconsistent, and also other libraries that were dependent on these things. So you have things like onCreate and onCreate view would be firing at different times depending on if a fragment was inflating another fragment or an activity was inflating a fragment. So yeah, so Jetpack also helps with consistency. So if you really want to ease your development, I would suggest you actually use the Jetpack libraries.
Hannah, do you have something to add to that?
No, I think he's discovered it all. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Smile. So I've put in a few links on the chat for people who want to look more into Jetpack. Feel free.
Awesome.
So another question here is, what's the identity credential API all about?
Well, it depends. If you're talking about identity credential API in the sense of you're talking about the Google Identity API, well, you're actually talking about an API that deals with single sign-on or the Google sign-on, and as well also supports encryption of encrypting user data with their identity or device identity, like device credentials. But if you are talking about the identity API in the sense of the device security itself, device credentials, which also, then you're actually talking about using this device credentials to also still encrypt data, but except you're encrypting the data and getting a key, a unique key that you must always use to decrypt that data. So it depends on which one you're talking about, but at least I've explained both of them.
Okay, thank you, Smile. So someone else is asking, Smile, can you share where we can get the snippets for the control APIs?
Oh, okay. They are all available in the developer preview URL. Juma, I don't know if you could share that as well in the chat. but everything is available there. Yeah,
Okay,
and
let me
when
look
you
for
go
the link.
through, okay, and when you go through that, you'd also be able to see a link to the Universal Android Media Player, and that would kickstart you in the media controls.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think this goes to Hannah. So I'm a beginner in Android development and would like to know where I can get more resources to guide me, like more information on Android APIs in general.
Yeah, first off, I'd just start with that link you sent, the one that goes to the developer page on Jetpack. But again, it would be also helpful to just work on tutorials that talk about how to integrate different kind of APIs. And the best way to always start if you're a beginner is to have a project in mind. What do you want to have as your end goal? So as Juma always says, start with the project, and then you can, that's the best ways to start learning. Yeah.
Thank you. So another one is, so how do you use a service with MVVM? So I had an interesting scenario where I wanted to observe a live data object from a repository inside a service.
Okay. Well, that shouldn't be, it depends on how you've actually broken up your app. So I would start this with usually MVVM, as we would say, is actually a presentational layer architecture. So if you had a service, and if I get correctly, you want to observe a live data within the service, correct?
Yeah.
For one, live data is actually tied to a life cycle, and which will be basically for a view. So I wouldn't suggest, like, if you are within the service observing the live data, and I think that's kind of weird. But if you want to check changes in the data and you're still within a service, maybe you could actually try using something around, if you're using Kotlin, maybe you could try something using around Flow, like maybe a broadcast channel or a conflated broadcast channel if you need it to persist. So maybe you could look around that, because it functions somehow like live data, except it's not about life cycle, but it's actually a channel. So if you set something to the channel, you're able to listen to those changes. So I don't know if that answers the question, or maybe you could expatiate and we figure it out.
So I don't know what's the question. It's an anonymous person, so I hope that answers the question for them.
Okay. All right. Then
Yeah,
in
so,
case maybe, okay, I was going to say, in case maybe you still need a little bit of help with looking through the whole MVVM thing, I just posted a link. You could check this sample repo, and yeah, hopefully that also pushes you in the right direction.
yeah, thank you, Smile. So we don't have any other question on Slido. So if someone else has a question, please feel free to post it before we close the session. Hannah, I think you can go to the last slide. So, so thank you everyone for joining in today. It's been a pleasure having you, Hannah, and Smile for this talk today. We're very excited and thankful for this. So next week we'll be having Hannah again. She'll be speaking about data access audit on Android 11. So I'm going to share a link to the next event. Please RSVP, and then we'll see you there. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Juma.
Thank you so much, Juma, for moderating this. Thank you, Hannah and Smile, for being amazing speakers. I think we have gathered great insights from the content that you have shared. Looking forward to the next webinar. Don't forget to RSVP for the next webinar. See you all next week. Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Next week we have Hannah and Frank Tamre.
Next week, yeah. Next week it's Hannah, Frank. Thank you.